To many, the greatest heavyweight boxing clashes were the amazing Muhammad Ali against Smokin' Joe Frazier, or even the recent coming together of Lennox Lewis and the malevolent Mike Tyson. But those contests were gentle compared to the 19th century bare fist battles between Bendigo and Ben Caunt to be champion of England. Bendigo from Nottingham was the greatest sporting legend of the time, described in the journal Bell's Life as being as quick as a cat and deadly as a rattlesnake. Ben Caunt from Hucknall was indeed Big Ben, a real Goliath by the standards of the day, and a celebrated prize fighter. Now this is where our story begins, because this is the birthplace of William Thompson, the extraordinary Bendigo, and would you believe it, the house where he was born is now an estate agent's. It used to be one of the roughest parts of Nottingham. Author J.P. Bean has just written a book on the life of bold Bendigo.
He was an all-round athlete. He was a runner. He was a cricket player. He went to badger baiting evenings. He was involved in cockfights. And one of his great claims to fame was that with his left hand he hurled half a house brick 114 yards here across the Trent.
If Bendigo was famous, his supporters were infamous. They were a gang called the Nottingham Lambs, and they were ready for the slaughter. They carried clubs and cudgels, they called their twigs, and exerted their influence on events of the time.
The Nottingham Lambs were a group of considerable ruffians. They used to turn out at elections. They were mainly coming along to support various candidates, and they loved the fight that would go on here in the marketplace where all the elections took place, the voting took place, and there was plenty of scope for getting to people who were voting the wrong way.
Bendigo was born and buried in Nottingham. Ben Caunt's resting place is in Hucknall. Next week, find out what happened when Bendigo met Big Ben in 3 epic bare-knuckle brawls over 190 rounds. Between 1835 and 1845, the most fearsome fights in boxing history were battled out bare-fisted by 2 men of knots, the extraordinary William Thompson, alias Bendigo, and Ben Caunt, the amiable giant from Hucknall. At his heaviest, the elastic Bendigo weighed 12 stone and was reputed to be 5'9" or 10. By contrast, Caunt was huge by the standards of the day. Bendigo was buried in St Mary's Gardens, Sneinton. He was a legend, and so were his parents.
Both Bendigo's parents were very eccentric. His father was a skilled mechanic. Bendigo claimed that he could tap and screw an egg. His mother's talents were more earthly. She was known for a fine moustache, for her stomach powders, and for singing in taverns, and for a strong right hand.
Big Ben Caunt was buried in the centre of Hucknall.
He was the son of a gamekeeper who was employed by Lord Byron. During his fighting career he took a pub in London. He was known for his musical evenings. He was a jolly chap. And towards the end of their careers, their lives, they became great friends, he and Bendigo.
Bendigo's supporters, the Nottingham Lambs, were part of the mean streets where he grew up.
This wasn't here in the 1840s. This was the Rookeries area, where policemen never went on their own. They only went in twos, where thieves were known to be able to disappear at very short notice.
Now, at any prize fight, a local squire was pressed into action as the referee. Now, the fights were attended by the lords and nobility who travelled by horseback and also by coaches, and they wagered large amounts of money on the outcome of the fight. And of course, any Bendigo prize fight was attended by the fearsome gang, the Nottingham Lambs.
I say, another £20 on Bendigo.
Although the fights were illegal, the Lords were keen followers. The equivalent of millions changed hands in bets, especially for the 3 gruelling brawls between Bendigo and Big Ben, over a total of 190 rounds. The illustration on J.P. Bean's biography features the famous throttling scene in their final contest. Caunt, frustrated by Bendigo, tried to strangle him. Accounts claim Bendigo's eyes bulged and face turned purple. Bendigo taunted Caunt, calling him a chucklehead and a dirty toad, threw his opponent to the ground and kicked him. But Bendigo won the final and deciding fight. A picture of Caunt and photograph of Bendigo, who lived to be 69, show them in later life. Bendigo's funeral in 1880 was one of the biggest events ever seen in Nottingham. Sir Arthur Conan Doyle wrote a poem celebrating the life of bold Bendigo.
Bendy, short for Bendigo, you should have seen him peel. Half of him were whalebone, half of him was steel. Fighting weight 11'10", 5'9" in height. Always ready to oblige if you want to fight.